for the training was upon the police clearance certificate, which was submitted as part of the required documents. And following a report dated 26 July 2023, reference number DCI/CRO/SEC/6/7/2/A/Forum X11, that is 13/33, by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, that the police clearance certificate submitted by Mr. Etil was not genuine. The authority invoked the provision of clause 5 of the overletter on requirement of satisfactory background checks to terminate the offer of Mr. Etil to train as a revenue service assistant. The termination is in line with clause 6.1.2.1.4 of the KRA Code of Conduct, which classified giving false information as gross misconduct. Honorable Speaker, I would follow up with what Honorable Member has said with further investigations, but I think it will be related to the report by DCI that was provided. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Question 215 of 2023 by Honorable Opiyo Wandayi. Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, the minority leader is not here. Yes, Wamboka.
Honorable Wandayi is engaged and just had asked that the minister can therefore go ahead and answer the question.
The minister can't answer a question that has not been asked.
Can I ask on behalf of Honorable
You can't, because there's no written designation to the speaker that you ask on his behalf.
You may use your discretion, Honorable Speaker.
I have no discretion.
I'll be very grateful, as I've always been.
I have no discretion on this. The rules are very clear. Honorable Wandayi's question will be stayed for any other time that the minister may be coming here. Question 150 of 2023, Honorable John Makali.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise to ask question number 150/2023 to the Cabinet Secretary. Could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether the government has ever released the sum of Kenya shillings 21,782,366,530 and a further Kenya shillings 908,878,470 towards restructuring of Nzoia Sugar Company Limited as per the recommendations of the sessional paper number 12 of 2012 adopted by the National Assembly on the 9th January 2013. 2, if in the affirmative, provide any evidence indicating when the funds were released and any annual write-offs. 3, provide details of the current annual status of the balance sheet of Nzoia Sugar Company Limited. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. In response to this question, Honorable Speaker, the National Treasury has not released Kenya shillings 21.782 million and further Kenya shillings 900
million or billion? What I
sorry,
is billion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The National Treasury has not released Kenya shillings 21.782 billion and further Kenya shillings 908.88 million towards restructuring of the balance sheet of Nzoia Sugar Company as per the sessional paper number 12 of 2012. The funds were never appropriated after the change of government administration in March 2013. No funds were released for the second question, and no rights were made. In that question, in response, what appears to have happened, I have provided a table which shows the statement of the financial position as of June 2023. we see that the assets are 9.18 billion. The current non-current assets, current assets are 1.49 billion, and total assets are 10.6 billion. These are financed by capital reserves, which is negative to the tune of 55.73 billion, and the liabilities are current liabilities are 4.38 billion, current liabilities 62.02 billion, and total liabilities are actually 66.41 billion, and the liabilities and capital are 10.67 billion. What I have attached, Mr. Honorable Speaker, are the latest audited financial statements from 30th June 2022 in Annex 1, Appendix 1, and the fourth quarter 2022-2023 financial statements, the report that is provided in Appendix 2. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John Makali, you have any supplementary question?
Speaker.
Go ahead.
Honorable Speaker, I am not satisfied with the response by the Cabinet Secretary for 3 reasons. One, this was a resolution of the House of this National Assembly to write off those debts. Those debts were not written off, and every time we go to the villages, we keep on asking, why were those debts not written off? The Cabinet Secretary has not explained the circumstances under which those debts were not written off. Two, on the 14th of this month, this House again sat and passed another resolution that those debts were to be written off. We want to be given an assurance by the Cabinet Secretary that this time round, all those debts are going to be written off and farmers be paid and the workers be paid. 3, the Cabinet Secretary has not given a clear-cut response that the current balance sheet of Nzoia Sugar Company is after writing off of those days, we'll have a clear balance sheet, because what we want, Honorable Speaker, is to have a clear balance sheet so that this particular company can be able to begin operating to profitability. The difficulty we have, Honorable Speaker, is that out of a small loan that was given of 9.9 million shillings, now we have a debt of 27 billion shillings out of accrued interest, precisely arising out of non-compliance with the resolution of this particular House. Can the Cabinet Secretary assure this House, the nation, and the people of Bungoma that whatever resolution that are given by this House will be honored and implemented and executed to the letter?
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. There is a supplementary question number 8 from my records that tries to explain the subsequent statement that has been made. Honorable Speaker, I was hoping that I would want to take those 2 questions because they are complementing each other. Can I do that?
Minister, you finished?
I had actually said, Honorable Speaker, I had related that to another issue that is related to this on the bailout, as well as the current thinking in terms of rescuing the sugar sector. And I was hoping that I can answer that when I'm doing that, because it combines the process.
In the course of this afternoon? If you are not with full information, write to the member through the clerk.
That is in order, because we have a supplementary answer to that, to the bailout section this afternoon that we are going to provide.
Okay, fine. When we get there, you can deal with it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, 151, member for Madare, Anton Oluoch.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question 151 of 2023 to the Cabinet Secretary. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the reasons as to why funds to political parties have not been paid out in accordance with the provisions of the Political Parties Act since its enactment, and in particular, circumstances under which the political party funds meant to ensure political parties operate and function as institutions of governance are yet to be fully disbursed 4 months to the end of the 2022-2023 financial year. 2, outline the steps that the ministry has taken to implement the High Court decision, Judicial Review number 483 of 2016, that directed the Cabinet Secretary to, among other things, ensure that the National Treasury makes budgetary proposals and estimates that reflect allocations not less than 0.3% of national revenues to political parties, including steps that the ministry is taking to comply with provisions of the Political Parties Act. And 3, indicate the arrears due and owing to each of the political parties for the financial years 2016-2017 up to and until 2022-2023. The steps being taken to ensure that the arrears are cleared, and further explain the measures the ministry is taking to ensure that political parties are able to pay their staff in time and carry out their calendar of activities uninterrupted, as required by the Constitution and the Political Parties Act. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. In response to this question, let me say that in totality of it, the constraints are purely the exchequer revenues. Honorable Speaker, the allocation of government revenue is guided by the Constitution, the Public Finance Act 2012, and the Contingency Fund, and even the Commission on Revenue Allocation Act. And the Constitution provides the structure and priority in which revenue collected by the national government shall be shared between the national and county governments, and is provided under the Constitution. These are non-discretionary expenditures that take the first charge in the budget, and these include the allocation towards debt service, pensions, contingency fund, salary requirements across governments, and provisions to the constitutional commissions and independent offices, including Parliament and the judiciary. Once resources are shared according to the list that I've provided, we look at what is left, and then it can be shared out. The constraints have been with us for a long time, Honorable Speaker, and with respect to the second question, the prevailing fiscal environment is such as considerable debt repayments and the current expenditure allocation, and even given the need to respond to emergencies, has placed the National Treasury in a very, very peculiar circumstance. With this in mind, I have provided a table summary which shows the allocations and the arrears. That is the table on page 11, which answers the third question, and I've showed the arrears. For example, I start with the actual allocation in 2016 to 2017, and I add up to with the allocations of 2022 to 2023. I've shown what was budgetary allocation, and I've shown at the last law the allocations. The arrears, and the arrears are to the tune of 30.056 billion. Honorable Speaker, the last question, I have shown the amount that has been allocated to the political parties fund, and is currently provided for, and this is also provided on in table 12, And it starts from 2018, where amount of Kenya shilling 671 million was allocated to the fund, and all the way down to 2023, where 1.47 billion is allocated to the fund. The problem here is that even though it is allocated, the fiscal constraints are giving us quite a major problem. However, the National Treasury has been progressively enhancing the allocation to the political parties fund to limit growth in these areas. As I've shown in the other table on page 11, we want to make sure that we minimize this. Additionally, Honorable Speaker, the Political Parties Fund is administered by the Registrar of Political Parties, as provided under the Section 23 of the Political Parties Act, 2011. Further, Section 68 of the PFMA Act 2012 gives the responsibility of an accounting officer, which includes preparation of estimates and expenditures and revenues of the entity in conformity with the strategic plan. Any further details can also be provided by the Registrar of Political Parties. But let me summarize by saying that it is the physical constraints that has pushed us this far. It is a hope that we do believe that the future is likely to be bright and we can clear these areas. Thank you.
Anton Oloch, are you satisfied with the explanation?
No.
Give Anton Oloch the mic. Ask a supplementary if you have any.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you to the CS. However, I wish to ask this supplementary question because specifically on the question of the court award, which we adverted to the judicial review number 483 of 2016. The minister has not, to my mind, and in the printed copy that I've looked at, answered what steps they are taking to respond to or meet the court award that was issued and which is still in arrears, even if you take into account the fiscal constraints that are there at the current time. In addition to that, to the CS, Article 201 states that tax burden and benefits are supposed to be shared equally, so that even if we acknowledge that there are challenges to the exchequer after taking out the ones that are prioritized, can you demonstrate that even when the exchequer falls short, the constitutional commissions and all these other organs, including parliament, are deducted or denied allocations to the extent of the shortfall of the exchequer? And lastly, employees of political parties are required to pay statutory deductions. They are required to pay NHIF, NSSF. They are required to pay housing levy. How is the ministry taking into account the penalties that will accrue as a result of this default? What measures will be put in place to cushion political parties, which are institutions of governance, in paramateria with all other institutions, that they are equally safeguarded even as we talk about exchequer shortfalls? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you for that, Honorable Speaker. Thank you for that question. I do believe we will abide by the directions provided by this House. It is this House that determines the allocation of resources. It is this House that allows us to disburse these resources on the basis of availability. And it's also this House that gives us direction, and will continue doing that. However, the scarcity of resources permits us to actually show that we can look for flexibility when it is available. In the end, sometimes we find ourselves even negotiating for the penalties that the Honorable Member has actually talked about, just because we are facing some serious constraints on the exchequer requests, given the exchequer revenues that are available. So in fact, we do believe that the future will be brighter and we can actually resolve some of those historical legacy issues in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Honorable members, question 153 and 216 are related. So I'll invite the Honorable Mashua Waithaka, member for Kiambu,
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And Kamket, get ready to follow Minister. You will answer those together.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to ask the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning the following question. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the volume of US dollars reserve held by the Central Bank of Kenya and each of the commercial banks in the country, and confirm whether the high volume of US dollars believably being hoarded by commercial banks accounts for the spiraling exchange rate that has hit an all-time high? Question number 2. Explain why the rate of exchange for purchasing US dollars from forex bureaus and commercial banks is as high as 141 Kenya shillings and shillings 146 per unit respectively. Yet the indicative exchange rate set by the Central Bank of Kenya is 129 shillings, translating to a difference of almost 15 shillings per unit against the CBK rate. Question number 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to resolve the shortage of dollar supply, lower the exchange rate, cushion importers from the loss of money due to the high dollar exchange rate, and to avoid the proliferation of black money exchange markets? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. William Kamket.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury and Economic Planning the following question. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the impact that de-dollarization by countries such as China, Brazil, Russia, India, Malaysia, and Saudi Arabia may have on Kenya's economy, in light of the fact that these countries are key markets and trade partners in Kenya's international trade? And 2, could the minister clarify whether Kenya will follow the same trend of de-dollarization that has been adopted by recently by various developing market economies? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as at September 22nd, 2023, the usable foreign exchange reserves held by the Central Bank of Kenya was US dollar 6.96 billion. This represents about 3.76 months of import cover. Commercial banks keep deposits in dollars and other currencies in accordance with the statutory ratios set by the central bank. Foreign currency deposits held by commercial banks have remained constant, with trade growth currently standing at US dollar equivalent to 1.15 billion shillings as at June 2023, from about 921 billion as of December. Honorable Speaker, these are customer accounts. These are customer deposits. So in a sense, it's not holding, it is actually customer accounts that they are holding. The second question, the response to the second question, the exchange rate details are released by the Central Bank of Kenya, and it's an indicative rate meant to help those exchanging currencies to gauge the value of the shilling at any given day. The central bank does not set the exchange rate. It is determined by the market. The central bank receives actual exchange rate transactions from commercial banks and forex bureaus every day and computes the mean rates from these numbers. And the mean rates is what is quoted as the exchange rate of the day. Honorable Speaker, if you look at any newspaper of the day in the morning, you'll see a table that provides all these details. But what happens is that it is the mean rate that is quoted that gives us an idea of what is the value of the currency. Individual forex bureaus and commercial banks set their own rates, which are held to reasonable levels of variance and even margins due to competition in the market. Because essentially, customers are free to move from one bank or one forex bureau to another. Typically, consumers looking to exchange smaller amounts and focusing on the exchange rate available, the nominal exchange rate available, will find more favorable rates at forex bureaus, while those looking to exchange larger amounts through their foreign accounts will find better rates in commercial banks. But that variability can be seen in the table. That question, Honorable Speaker, in response, I want to say that Kenya pursues a flexible exchange rate policy. And this flexible exchange rate policy allows the price of the Kenya shilling to be determined by the market. As of March 2023, the central bank issued a forex code, and the code is intended to promote a robust, fair, liquid, and even open and appropriately transparent market, which in a diverse way sets the market rate. The market participants participating in that market will get their confidential bids. And this is supported by a resilient infrastructure, including interbank trading infrastructure, which we can confidently and even effectively say that it has transacted competitively in the market since it was re-established. We do believe that this is an area we are going to look into, and we are going to show that as we improve on the infrastructure and more trading is made at the interbank market, it is actually going to be competitive. Most of the time, what we see even in the analysis in the newspapers is actually the variability, the variance between trading partners. It is important to note that the key factors that are responsible for the depreciation of the currency include the adjustment process and the global dollar shortage that ignited this shortage. Going on to the question number 216 of 2023, Honorable Speaker, globally, countries are setting up alternative currencies for trade. And the de-dollarization debate, which aims at reducing the dominance of the US dollar, is actually a force behind that. In actual fact, what will happen in the payment system, because this is actually the effect of the payment system, what will happen in the payment system is that countries will adopt a payment system that is currency neutral. So it means that they will not be de-dollarized, but they will make sure that the payment system is currency neutral. The trend is attributed to the crisis in the Ukraine and the sanctions in Russia that elevated the inflation in the US and which reduced the real returns on the dollars and created a global dollar shortage. And the US dollar has now accounted for less than, for about 59% of the global foreign currency trading, different from what it was before that. It was around 62%. As the table, I've shown a figure, a pie chart figure that is actually summarizing that. And we'll continue showing that, especially in the African continental free trade area, what is happening is that countries in Africa are looking for payment system that is currency neutral. That means that the trading will take the weight of the currency in question, but it will not affect the trading. And that is where the dollarization is taking us. So in effect, Honorable Speaker, what I would say is that fear of dominance of the dollar is actually leading us to payment systems that are currency neutral, which is, as of now, is equivalent to de-dollarization. But what is also showing up is that countries like China and India are popularizing their own currencies so that they provide an alternative liquidity channel through which trading will take place. But in the end, what we are going to see is actually a trading platform or a payment system globally that is currency neutral. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Mashua.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am happy with with the 2 questions that I had asked. But on the third one, I was thinking that the other measures that I was, for example, we know that that gold can be used as a hedge against inflation and against the declining of the value of the currency. I was wondering whether the Cabinet Secretary has thought about maybe having to buy gold from our neighbors here, the DRC, who have plenty of gold, whereby we can use that gold as an insurance policy. The other question that I would like to ask is, we know that most of the money we get in dollar is from the diaspora.